Today I'm going to show you guys a Vex bleed build.
Wow, another Vex bleed build. Wow.
This is the Vex Bleed Deadringer Bloodletting Minion build, a great often considered broken build that specializes in single target damage and taking down bosses in one shot by applying the bleed status effect. In this video I'll be going over skills to use, gear to acquire, and gameplay tips for the build. The Bloodletter skill is busted right now, whether intentional or not. It's probably going to get reworked soon, so use it while you can. This build is especially meant for bossing and is good for mobbing as well. Its weakness is huge hordes of enemies, and as its strength is single targets. The way this build works is utilizing the Bloodletting skill. With the Bloodletting skill, critical hits have a chance to apply bleed, causing kinetic status effect damage over time for a duration. The first thing we're going to cover is the skills required to get this build going. So you will be using the Deadringer action skill. This one gives you 3 phase clone minions to spawn. We'll be using the Spectres for this build. We're going to start with the Incarnate skill tree. We want Leeching Attunement. When attuned to kinetic, Leeching Attunement allows you to lifesteal 10% of the damage dealt with a duration of 6 seconds. This is really good for just staying alive, sustainability in fights. I really like this one for mobbing. And when paired with another skill later on, it increases the overall damage in the build. What does attuned mean? Attuned is the damage dealt by the weapon. Right here, my Hot Slugger, for instance, does no elemental damage, so it is attuned to kinetic. The main skill for this tree is the Bloodletter skill. The entire tree revolves around this. This is where the billions of damage are coming from, is from this skill, reprocking itself over and over and over again. The Bloodletter skill allows you to apply bleed status effect to an opponent when you land a critical hit. Bleed is affected by status effect application chance and is itself considered a status effect. This is the most important skill in the tree because when combined with items that I'm going to go over shortly, it turns all damage into crits. Every single instance of damage becomes a crit, including bleed. This is going to let your damage reach insane numbers starting from the low 100,000s all the way up to billions. The next skill in the tree is material components. With it, Vex gains increased kinetic damage and kinetic status effect damage. This increases your damage overall, like that's just it. Next on the list is Great Vitality. It's a kill skill. With this skill, Vex gains increased maximum health capacity and health regeneration when she gets a kill, and it stacks up to 10 times. This is basically just for sustainability. Vex is kind of a squishy character, and mobbing around with single target is kind of it's kind of a pain in the ass. We put 1 into Grave Power. You don't necessarily have to do that. I just did this to increase the amount. I just had an extra point and just put it in here to increase the amount of kill skill stacks. It's not necessarily needed. You can opt in for something else, like you can put an extra into Bloodshot, for instance, or you can throw an extra onto the red tree into enchantment or something. But I just personally went for an extra kill skill. Next on the Incarnate tree, we have 1 into Bloodshot. This is important. This is very important. Bloodshot contributes a lot to one-tapping bosses. When you use a rep kit, your next gunshot becomes a bloodshot, converting damage dealt into kinetic damage and dealing bonus damage based on your current health. This can be combined with like the Timekeeper shield, for instance, that increases your health a lot. There's some builds that have that I'll probably cover in the future that have max bloodshot and Timekeeper shield that do a lot of just one-shot damage. Next, we're going to go over Essence Leech. This is just lifesteal. Vex gains lifesteal, and it doubles the effect when your action skill is active. So when you put down a clone, instead of 10%, you're going to gain 20%. Leeching Attunement also gives you lifesteal of 10%, so Leeching Attunement together with Essence Leech will give you about 30% lifesteal overall, so long as your action skill is activated. And then Blood is Power, which is our last skill. Vex gains bonus kinetic damage with guns based on her current lifesteal when her health is full. So 300% of the amount of lifesteal that we get is going to be converted into damage that gets added on to her bleed. Obviously, the amount of lifesteal you get is dependent on the amount of damage you do, and the amount of damage just keeps going up. So the amount of life that you get just keeps going up. So the amount of bonus kinetic damage you get just keeps going up, and it's just a constant stack of just things just keep going up. They just keep going up and up and up and up. And that's the incarnate skill tree. Now we're going to go over the phase familiar skill tree. We only have one skill in this tree, enchantment. All it does is you gain bonus kinetic damage with guns while your action skill is active. This is just increasing the amount of damage you do overall since you're using kinetic. Next, we're going to go over the Dead Ringer action skill tree. This is the action skill that we're actually using. The first skill we're going to be going over is Idle Hands. Vex and her minions gain reload speed based on the fullness of her health. I use single shot weapons, so this is very good for me. The Hot Slugger, for instance, you shoot an enemy, you just have to reload instantly, so having 30% reload speed is really useful for that type of weapon. Cold Iron is just additional gun damage. Importance of Suffering is a very important skill. Vex and her minions gain increased status effect damage. This basically is just additional damage to your bleed, since bleed scales with status effect damage. The next skill we're going to go over is Grave Quickening. It's a kill skill. You gain action skill cooldown rate when you get a kill. This is really good for mobbing, for clearing areas and doing drill sites. When you put down a minion, it's a kill, you get action skill cooldown rate. It just basically makes your skill just regenerate faster, and you're going to have minions faster. The augment we use for this build is the Wither augment. Spectres cast Wither on an enemy when they spawn, dealing status effect damage over time and increasing damage taken for a duration. When an enemy is withered by a minion, what it does is it increases the amount of damage they take by 30% for about 15 seconds. Not only that, but it also applies a withering status effect that does status effect damage over time. Whenever you get a kill on a withered enemy, Spectres can use Wither again. The Wither augment is very good for bossing. It's also good for mobbing. This entire build is just stacking damage on top of each other. All of these skills synergize extremely well together. Bleed is a status effect that scales with gun damage, so basically all of these skills boost Vex's gun and status effect damage. This build is great for endgame, awesome at one-tapping bosses. I do recommend this build. For gear, you're going to want to look out for the Hot Slugger. Where can you get the Hot Slugger? In Craven's Nook, in the heart of the mountain. Callous Harbinger of Annihilating Death drops the Hot Slugger. Keep an eye out for Looming Dullahands with Spread Launcher. That is the underbarrel launcher that does an insane amount of damage, especially when combined with Bloodshot. It's just a world drop, can drop from any boss pretty much. I do recommend having 2 Dullahands. If you can't, it's just opting in for the Armored Bod. Where can you get the Armored Bod? Get the Armored Bod by farming Axe Maul. Where is Axe Maul? Axe Maul is later in the game once you unlock the Dominion. In the Toil of Spoiling Vis. It's a very good weapon. It counts as a shotgun, an assault rifle, and a sniper. SMG and a pistol. It's very good for doing challenges. It's very good for doing a lot of damage. Last but not least, for weapons, I recommend any sniper of your choice. Preferably, though, the Looming Truck is a very good sniper to use. It does an insane amount of crit damage. You can sort by crit damage and check into your inventory. Whichever sniper has a high crit damage, you're going to want to use that. This is a one-shot build after all. We're going to go over the equipment to use right now. I like using standard triple bypass because it has 3 charges with amp on it. Amp is very important. It increases the amount of damage done by your first shot by 200%. This is great for one-tapping bosses. It just increases the amount of damage you do. Bleed is percentage based off your amount of damage you do, so you're going to want as much damage you do off the first shot. So amp is very good to have on triple bypass. How can you get to standard triple bypass? You can get to standard triple bypass by defeating the back hive inside the dissected plateau. This boss is located in the claim in the abandoned auger mine. Damage amp is very important for one-shotting bosses, but you're probably going to be leveling while doing this. I recommend getting anything between like 100% action skill cooldown rate, life steal, movement speed. Those are probably the best and easier options for mobbing. I use the crit knife. Everyone knows what the crit knife is. Basically, at this point, it's just a throwing knife with penetrator augment and damage amp. Permanent crits for 5 seconds and damage increased by 15% for 5 seconds. Very important for this build. Super, 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 super important. Make sure you keep an eye out for this. You can get this at any level. It's a world drop. Doesn't necessarily drop anywhere specific. You can get it anywhere farming any boss. For our Vex class mod, we have Rending Scion. It just gives us +5 to Bloodletter. Gives us +1 to material components, and it gives us Drinkful, so we can stack Drinkful. Rending Scion is a world drop. It doesn't just drop from any boss. You can just get it anywhere. Make sure that you're just keeping an eye out for it. Like, it would be extremely rare for someone to get the exact same thing as this, so I would just, when you're out looking for class mods, keep an eye out for Bloodletter stacks and material component stacks. For the stats on a class mod, you want to look for stuff like gun critical hit chance, gun critical hit damage, gun damage, kinetic damage, anything like that really that increases the amount of damage or status effect damage that you're going to be doing. Next is a shield. Cinder Shelly is more of a sustainability shield that I recommend. I personally would choose the shield since Vex is a single target vault character. She's harder to mob around with than other characters. Rafa, for instance, his ordnance build, you can just throw grenades everywhere. You don't really have to worry about hordes of enemies coming at you. But on Vex, you could be targeting one enemy and there's 18 other enemies shooting at you and you have to shoot them all one at a time. The Superconductor Cinder Shelly is really good because when damaged, it grants a stack of Resolve that reduces the amount of damage taken by 2% per stack up to 25 stacks. So long as you have that shield, you have up to 50% damage reduction. For the attribute for my shield, I'm running Amp. When shields are full, shots drain 35% of those shields for 150% gun damage. This is really good for that first shot. You're going into a boss fight, you pop a triple bypass, you get an amp for an extra 200%. Your shield's going to be full. You hit a bloodshot, that increases your gun damage. This increases your gun damage with amp. Basically, you're just doing it. You're just doing so much damage. It's just stacks on stacks on stacks of damage with each piece of equipment that you're getting. You get the Cinder Shelly from the boss in the claim, the back eye. For our enhancement, we're running a Jacob's enhancement with an extra ricochet by 1 to help with mobbing. This is really good for the hot slugger since it only has 1 shot. And it also increases the amount of damage we do with each crit. For me, it's just basically a 40% increase to my critical, my bonus damage. It's basically just a free 40% bonus damage when I am running around with hot slugger. For my stats on this enhancement, I have gun critical damage increased by 50% and shotgun critical damage is increased by 75%. And since I'm just using shotguns, basically, it's just, I'm doing a lot of damage. Next, we're going to go over the firmware. You want 3 Deadeye and 2 high caliber, that's what I recommend. 3 Deadeyes for gun accuracy increased by 30%, gun critical damage increased by 25%, and every critical hit grants 15% critical damage per stack for a maximum of 5 stacks. Next, we have high caliber. Since the shotguns we use are projectile based, high caliber is really good. It increases the projectile speed by 25%. Those shots are going to hit faster. Gun damage is increased by 10%. It's just more damage. Both of these are really good. Probably the best things to pick for Vex single target bleed build, in my opinion. So keep an eye out for each enhancement of these types. It doesn't necessarily matter the order so long as you get these enhancements. Reminder that you can only put enhancements from the items onto enhancements of the same items. I cannot take this enhancement with Deadeye and put it on my throwing knife with high caliber because it's an enhancement and not an ordnance. I would need an ordnance with high caliber or Deadeye to put on this throwing knife. But if it's already enhanced, which I've enhanced these already, you cannot re-enhance them. You have to find a new item. Next, we're going over the specializations. They're very important, the specializations. We have 20 into brute, 17 into killer, 20 into sharpshooter, 10 into runner. I just have an extra 2 into killer. You really only need like 1 into killer for the perk. 51 the specialization points for all the perks that you're going to need. You need Riddle You This. Whenever you deal gun damage, you gain a stack of Riddle You This, increasing gun damage. You get up to 50% gun damage for 6 seconds when you're shooting a target constantly. Contamination. This is the most important specialization for this build. This is what's going to allow your crits to proc infinitely. Critical hits grant increased status effect application chance. So critical hits, by default with Bloodletting, have a 50% chance to proc a bleed. With the specialization, it goes up by 10% every time you land a critical hit. That means after 5 crits, you have a 100% chance to bleed. Basically, what this means is that so long that you have an enemy marked with a crit knife, your bleed is going to infinitely be happening. Next for specializations, we have 1 shot, 1 kill. It's a kill skill. This is good for mobbing. Excess damage that you do to an enemy is stored and added to your next gunshot. You're running around one-tapping everything with this weapon. Every time you do damage to an enemy, it's going to store damage. Make sure you hit the next shot. If you hit the next shot, it's going to do an insane amount of damage. It's probably going to kill them, even if you don't crit them. The last specialization that we're going to talk about today is Bullet Train on the runner tree. With Bullet Train, the Vault Hunter can now hip fire while sprinting and gains gun damage the faster they move. This is great for just doing extra damage. You're pretty much never really standing still in this game. All you're really doing is moving. So just having an extra amount of damage, just passively doing absolutely nothing other than just existing is pretty nice. Alright, I think that's more than enough to cover this build. If you made it this far, thank you so much. If you feel I missed anything, please leave a comment. If you have any suggestions as well, please comment that. What build should I make? Was this useful to you? If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, like and subscribe. I'm trying to make content every single week. And follow me on Twitch. I'm live almost every single day. Every like motivates me a little bit more. Thanks again, and peace.